Hi, it is Ferrero Rocher cover time. So these are Ferrero Rocher, if you're not sure. They're just basically little round chocolates. So wherever you are in the world, there will be a little round chocolate somewhere that will fit this. And as you've seen from the thumbnail, this is what we're going to be making. It's my interpretation of a rose, or it could be any flower you wanted, to be honest. I just thought it was really cute. We've got Mother's Day coming up here. We've got Easter coming up here. It would just be sweet as just a general little birthday gift, just a little something to give to somebody. You could have the full box of the chocolates and the little flower to go with it. It's up to you how you would work that. I've added a little button on here as well, and of course that again is something you can change or not do. It is a super easy pattern. It takes a little bit of time to sew up. I will go through the sewing up process probably more than the crochet process with you today. It is easy, it's just there is a process to it, that is all. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to go top down. Don't forget UK terms. This is a double knit yarn. Like I say, super quick to do. I would also like to say a thank you to my new patron, who is Carol. Thank you so much, Carol, for joining us. And obviously on my Patreon, there are different videos to what there are on here, or there might be previews or things like that. I've only just started it, so you know, there's a few things to put on there or get used to yet. But this is what we're going to do today here. It does stand very nicely. Well, you can see. That's a very crooked way of doing it. Should I do it that way? Do it that way. So even without the gift or the chocolate in, it stands as just a nice little gift. I mean, if you can see the little hole in the bottom there, you could seal it up if you wanted and actually turn it into a little flower and a stem. Whatever you want to do, it's open to your interpretation, as I've said with the button. So let's go top down and get this little flower made, and let's see who you're going to send it to as a gift. So here we are with our Ferrero Rocher rose cover. I think that's the right way of saying it. But as you can see, here is the little rose. It's just a simple design. It's nothing too complicated. It takes a little bit of sewing, but apart from that, it's quite simple. And I've just sewn a little bit of detail on. You don't have to do that. So inside is my chocolate. So we'll pop it out. It's very crushed now because this is my demonstration chocolate. It will get replaced eventually. But as you can see, when you do take the chocolate out, this sits fine as just a little rose to sit on the side. So it is quite cute, sort of a nice keepsake. So we're going to be getting on with this. Some of it, as you can see, I've already done because you don't want to watch me make all those petals, but I do need to show you how I'm putting it together, and that is why I've done that. Now these are just 4-ply yarns. I think the 4-ply works a little bit better with the Ferrero Rocher because it's a little bit finer. And then I am using a 3mm crochet hook. That went a little bit blurry then. A 3mm crochet hook, and then my normal bits and bobs. I have got my pins though in my little hedgehog pin cushion here, because the pins are what help me position it, and I'm going to show you how I did that. Again, optional, but I'll just show you how I went through the process. Obviously needle, stitch markers, etc, etc, etc. Green, red. You can have it whatever flower colour you want. The leaves usually are green, fair enough, but you could have a yellow rose, you could have a pink rose, whatever you want to work with. So we'll move that one out of the way, I think. We don't need that. Scissors aren't essential just yet. We will need the stitch marker though. So we will keep, no, we'll keep the rose. I'm not sure whether you can see it on camera there, because that part when the clamps over it. And there's, like I say, my very battered Ferrero Rocher chocolate. So let's see, can we get started? We can. So using this 4-ply yarn, don't forget we're in UK terms. That's creating a shadow there, I can't do that. It is in UK terms, and I'm not sure what a 4-ply yarn is elsewhere. I don't know whether you do use a 4-ply or whether it's called something else. So it could be something you need to check, I'm afraid. So here we go. Slip knot onto my hook, not too tight. Now this is done in an amigurumi style. This is definitely creating a shadow, which is very annoying, but I don't want my yarn too far away. I've got my pen and paper as well ready. So as I say, it's an amigurumi style, so it's nice and simple to follow if you're used to doing an amigurumi. So here we go. We have 2 chain. That's how I start mine, and into my first chain I do 6 double crochets. 90% of my amigurumi starts like that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6.
Obviously that's not enough to cover our little Rocher, so now we need to do 2 double crochets into each of these first rounds. So here we go. So 2 in number 1 and 2 in number 2, 2 in number 3, in number 4, in number 5, and finally 2 in number 6. There isn't actually much increasing for this because obviously the chocolate's quite small, isn't it? Right, I'm just going to pull the original end here just to tighten it up because I don't want a hole there, because as you can see it's quite obvious where that is, so you don't want a hole there, do you? So now we have 12 stitches, so I think now we need to increase again because obviously that doesn't fit over, and we're going to do 2 in each again, and that will be our last increase. We need 24 stitches basically, so 2 in each of the 12. So that's 2 in number 1, 2 in number 2, 2 in number 3, in number 4, in number 5, number 6. Oh, nearly missed it. Make sure you get those 2 parts. Number 7, 2 in number 8, in number 9, number 10, number 11, and our last one, 2 in number 12. So we have 24 stitches there. I'm going to do a very quick pause. You won't see the pause, but my daughter's just trying to get hold of me, so I better answer the call. So I'll be back with you in a second. Well, I'm back from a little break there. Just had to sort something out. Obviously, you don't see a break, but a couple of bits to sort out. I'm hoping the camera angle's okay now because I had to take my phone out, obviously, to call her, and then obviously put it back in. So I think we're about okay. So anyway, we got to 12. So now we are at the maximum that we need that will go over the chocolate or whatever you're actually gifting there. Now, if it was something bigger, you could actually sort of make it a little bit bigger if you wanted, a couple more increases, but obviously that affects petal size then. So we're now going to do 10 rounds of 1 double crochet in each. So I'm going to pop my stitch marker in. I mean, if you've got a nice quiet time, I'd recommend you count your 24 stitches to make sure you're in exactly the right place. But because obviously I'm chattering on here, a stitch marker is essential. So here we go. So we have 24 stitches and just 1 double crochet into every single one of those stitches. And so I've got my pen and paper ready because I like to mark down as I go. I think it's always a good idea to have pen and paper whenever you're doing any crochet or craft work anyway. So here we go, about halfway now. Now red's a funny colour on camera, it does glare a bit, so I'm hoping perhaps I should have done a yellow rose or something. I love a yellow rose as well. Because I say it's a bit of a weird colour to use on camera and getting the lighting right. Right, we're almost round for our first round. Right, so that is round number 1, so I'm going to mark it down. Now, I would recommend, depending on your tension, that when you get to about halfway round, you check your sizing, because you might not actually need 10 rounds. Different sort of tensions sort of can make a difference on things when you're working it. But you do need to make sure it comes down, sort of really down to the bottom of the chocolate, if not maybe tiny a little bit further, because when you put the petals on, it alters the shape a little bit. So off we go again. This is round 2. Should start curling a little bit soon, which is a good sign. That's halfway on 2. Also, don't forget to move your stitch marker every so many stitches. I think with 10 rounds you might get away with it, but it can make a difference to your work. Right, that is round for number 2, so we'll mark it down. Now, can you see how it's curling, which is good? It means it's curling in the right direction. Well, it's not in the right direction, actually. It's curling, which is going in the right direction. What we need to do is push it out, because this needs to be the top of our chocolate. Otherwise, it's going to be inside out. So off we go again. This is round number 3. I just had a look at the clock then. I've never really timed anything like this. I'm sort of curious to know how long the body part takes here. We're on approximately 3 minutes, but I don't think it takes a minute around. It's curling back up again. It's being naughty. But as I say, we just push it back out when it gets to the end. So you just push it back round. Oh, my hand's getting a bit tangled there. Can't it out. The ball of wool's starting to fall apart, actually. You know, you get so far, it's all neat and tidy to start with, and then it just ends up with a mess if you're not careful. So that is our round number 3. Mark it off. And I will move my stitch marker up. I don't think it's the end of the world for 10, but it's best to just behave and do it as we're supposed to do it. So here we go, off we go for round number 4. Now, I did mention in the first part of the video, the introduction, that it would make a great Mother's Day gift. I know I've ended up leaving this a little bit too late, but there's been a few things going on and some of my hospital appointments, etc. So it's thrown my timing out. Because our Mother's Day is this Sunday. So if you're making it for our Mother's Day, I know it's a quick make, but obviously you need to put your time to one side. You're going to have to get making. But yes, it's Sunday here. I know it's different in different parts of the world, though, isn't it? If yours isn't this Sunday, depending on where you are in the world, pop a comment below. It's interesting to know when it is in other parts of the world. But yes, the 10th this time. It does alter each year, but it is the 10th of March this year. So that is around number 4. Off we go with number 5. I mean, I know one of the biggest reasons I know it changes is because I had my daughter on the 17th of March, all those many, many, many years ago, and it timed, I had her on the Wednesday, and it was the Mother's Day on the Sunday for that one. So literally, she was just a few days old, and I had my first Mother's Day. So that is why, obviously I know about it changing days, but it's sort of quite a memorable one for me in that respect. Right, so you can see it's not curling the wrong way now, it stays where it's meant to be. Up, round again, that's number 5. So we are over halfway. Should we have a little look what it looks like on our little chocolate though for now? So if I sort of just slide it on, that's good. You can see it's sort of like sits relatively snug, but it's obviously easy enough to get on and off. It's like a little hat for it at the moment. So let's get on with round number 6. I think it looks like it will definitely be a 10 round for me. But I think when we get to maybe 9, we need to look. Or just keep checking it on your chocolate every couple of rounds anyway. Well, it's supposed to be spring here. It's very cold today. Although saying that, my feet are freezing. If I put something on them, it would help. I'm sat in my craft room without my slippers on because I can't find them. So my feet are a bit cold. There we go, almost at that stitch marker. Yep, we are there. That's 6. So you can see it's coming on nicely there. round number 7. Don't forget, if you are actually counting your stitches, you should have had 24 stitches. A few more. So I'm hoping this isn't too close. I'm sure it's moved slightly. Right, so that is my number. I said number 7. It's not. It was number 6, wasn't it? Well, I've only marked down 5 before. Did I miss one? Oh dear, I'll definitely be trying it when I get to number 8. Right, when I play it back, I'll notice whether I've said it twice or not. In theory, if what my paper says is right, this is round 7, and the last one was 6. But you can stop and count them, but to be honest, it's about fitting it on the item you want. So if if it needs to be a bit longer or a bit shorter, it doesn't make much difference. But obviously, if I was writing the pattern out, I would say this is 10 rounds. This would be, it would be an incredibly easy pattern to write out for people to buy. What would make it hard is the explaining of it. So if I do that, I'm going to have to take sort of photos of each stage for sewing it up, just to make sure it's accurate enough. Oh, there we are. Now, I say I'm marking it down, it says 7. I'm on number 8 now, so after 8 I will try it on my chocolate, because it is starting to look like it might be about right. Now, as I mentioned, I've actually already made some petals. The reason being is I am not going to be sewing the whole thing with you guys, because otherwise you're going to have to watch me for an awful long time in that respect. I'm sure you've all got your own different sewing methods, sort of preferred, shall I say the word right, preferred ways of doing it. So what I'm actually doing is just going to show you how I did it, and then entirely up to you where you go from there. Right, now theoretically, if I counted that right, or if I'd marked it off when I should have, that was 8. So let's have a look on our chocolate, because to be honest, that's looking about right. When you've done a few of these, you get used to where it is. Yeah, so can you see? It's a little bit, if you sort of, I don't know, I think you've got a ruler or something like that and you put it across, it's just higher than the very point of our chocolate. Now, these chocolates are quite lumpy, so you do have to watch that. So I'm saying that was 8, and somehow I've missed counting, haven't I? I do apologise for that. But as I mentioned at the beginning, if you've like whizzed off and done your 10 rounds, always check on the chocolates. So we get to there, that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I got to 9. So it's interesting to know though, because when I do the patterns, it's a good pattern check when I do it like that, because if I write a pattern out now, I can say it was 9, but always check your tension. So I'm going to finish that bit there. My chocolate's rolling away now. Don't need any of these yarns, so these ends can all be sewn in on this part. On the actual petals, some of the ends are quite handy to use for sewing on. So I'm just going to do a slip stitch and take my stitch marker out. There we go. And just for speed, I'm just going to tuck those in. Now you do need to sew them in neatly, because obviously they're going to get in the way when you come to doing it. So I can slip that on, and that is the start of our little rose. So that's just the centre point. Yeah. So I'm going to put that to one side. Now with the petals, I've done 2 different types. Now these are the ones I've already sort of popped on here. I've got one that just curves out a little bit more than the other one. So this first one curves in onto the centre, and this one has a little lip to sort of curl out. If you wanted it more rosebuddy, I suppose you could just do more of this first petal. But let's go with our first petal then. Again, amigurumi, nice and simple to do. Creating a shadow, over you go. Right, on we go. So exactly the same as we did for the top. We're going to go 2 chain. And into that first one, we're going to do 6 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We need to increase again, same as before. We're going to do 2 double crochets into each stitch, so we end up with 12 stitches. So that's 2 in the first one, 2 in the second one, 2 in number 3, in number 4, number 5, and in number 6. So we now should have 12 stitches. Now I didn't mention how many of these petals we make. I've made 5 of each. I found 5 sat nicely around, so that is why I went for number 5. Now this next one, we now got our 12. We still need more because that's not going to really go round, is it? So again, like before, 2 in each, so we get 24. You've almost done it, to be honest, when you get to that. So that's 1, 2, oh, nearly split it, 3, so it's 2 in each, remember, that's 2 in number 4 there, 2 in number 5, 2 in number 6, number 7, number 8, a bit more on my yarn out, number 8, number 9, 10, 11, and our last one for 2 is 12. So now we have 24 stitches there. I'm just going to tighten that center point. Be careful when you're doing that, you don't want your yarn to break. You find your 4-ply yarns can be a little bit more vulnerable when you're pulling, so please be careful with that. You don't want it snapping. And now we're going to do just 2 rounds of 1 double crochet into each of those 24 stitches. But because it's only 2 rounds, we're going to count. So off we go. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did that split then? No, we're okay. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, so we're over halfway, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, just 4 more to go, 21, need a bit more yarn out, can you see it's starting to fall apart, the ball, 1, I don't know whether 21 or 22 there, oh dear, I really shouldn't distract, should I? I'm going to say that's my 24, for 1 stitch is not going to make any difference, and this isn't an example for you guys. You make sure you count your 24, and I'm going to count my 24 theoretically again. Here we go. So we've got 1, I won't get distracted, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, halfway, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, I remember it's 18 before I pull the yarn, 18, 18, 19 next, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. Now I'm going to finish with a slip stitch, and that is petal 1. Now you can see we have a nice subtle sort of bend in that direction. So like we've done before, now I need this one here. Make sure that's the long one for sewing on. I'm just going to push it out and we've got our shape. So this one does need to be sewn in. So just as a brief example, can you see how it sort of fits over, it sort of curves round the base of our chocolate. So I think we will sew that end in. I will do as I say. So it's just the middle one I'm sewing in. When we get to the other one, I'm actually going to be keeping both ends, but I'll show you why when we get to it. But let's get rid of this one. So I'm just going to sew it round. Well, I'm not going to wrap it round. What am I doing there? Come out. Ta-da. So yeah, I'm just going to sew it round a few times, making sure it's not going to go anywhere. See, I'm pulling it towards myself. I'm being naughty again, because when I sew, I do sew close to my body, so I do find it hard not to. All I'm doing is threading it through the other stitches. Again, if you've done it before, you'll know what we're doing. So that's that bit done. That is petal number 1. Okay, now petal number 2 isn't hugely different. It's just the shape of the curve, that's all. So we have to do a bit of an increase at one point. So with my scissors, so we're going to start exactly the same. I mean, if you don't want that curve out, you know, this sort of curvy bit out, you could just do petals like that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. So here we go. 2 chain, 6 double crochet into our first one. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now 2 in each. That one doesn't want to go in. There we are. 1, 2. It's always that first one that catches me out. Then 2 in number 2. 2 in number 3. Number 4. Number 5. And finally 2 in number 6. So now we have 12 stitches, because we're just doing 2 in each, tightening up my centre point, because it does matter for this one particularly because it is an outer petal. And now again we're going to do, so we've got 24. Okay, so 2 in each again. So at the moment it's exactly the same. So that's 1. So 2 in each of the 12 it is to give us 24. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, nearly there, that's 10, 11, and one more, our 12. Now this is where it's going to change a little bit. So we have our 12, which is simple enough, but now we need to make it so it's going to curve a bit. So we're going to first off do 18 double crochets, just 18 of them. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's halfway, then that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, I think I split a stitch there, and 18. Right, so now we need to change it slightly. We're going to do 2 double crochets in each of the next 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are all going to have 2 double crochets in them. Just double checking my numbers there. It is 6, yes, just wanted to confirm. So we have 2 in the first one, yeah, 2 in number 2, 2 in number 3, 2 in number 4, in number 5, and 2 in number 6. Okay, so we now have, we've increased by 6 stitches. So we had 24 before, we actually have 30 stitches round. Can you see how it's pushing out? It sort of makes it an extra curve. But now all we're going to do is just 1 double crochet in each, but there's 30 stitches now because we need to land here. Okay, and we've had that increase. So with our 30 stitches, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. It is important we get the count right on this one. So that was 10. That's why I stopped at number 10 so I'd remember. And we got 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So now we're going to hit that bit where we've done the increase, but it's just 1 in each one. So I'm still going to count as I was. So that was 18, that's 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30, and I'm just going to do a slip stitch, and we've done. That's our petal number 2. Now I want a long strand for each side now, because we're going to use both of those, so we can get rid of that completely. So I'm not getting rid of either sort of yarn tail here. I'm going to pull that one through. Okay, that is the side, because this here, let me get it the right way around. Yep, this here, you know where we did the increase, is our curl. So we just give it a little stretch and you can see how it will curl around. So when I sew it on though, I want this one so I can sew each petal on each one, but I also want this one. Now let me get it into position again, so always remember that is to our left. Is that to our left? It's my left. I don't know whether it reverses for you guys. But anyway, it's to the side, making sure the increase is at the top. And this one, I want to use to sew just at the bottom of the petal. So a way of doing that, I hope this is going to make sense. A bit of a weird one to explain. That's why I say the sewing up is actually the more time-consuming bit. Right, if I can get that to thread, that is. Go on in. There we are. So, still keeping that to the side. I'm just going to thread this through, because I don't want to just jump with it, and it's a shame to have to start with another bit of yarn. I'm just going to thread it through all the way to the bottom, and that piece there will help me attach it to the bottom of the flower, and this bit's going to do to the sides of the flower. So that is petal number 2. So petal number 1's only got 1 tail, and petal number 2 has 2. I think we'll get all the crochet out of the way first before we start looking at it. Well, little needle there, nearly lost. Over there, little pincushion. Now if I can find the end of this green, that is. You know, I've only just rolled it up. There we are. Now the leaves, optional. I just thought it gave a little bit of kick of colour, so I just thought it was just something nice. But you don't have to do them if you don't want. But it's just something that makes it a little bit different, I think. So onto the hook again. It is still a 4-ply yarn we are using. And this one, it's going to be doing, well, it's sort of rows, for want of a better word. It's not amigurumi, put it that way. We're actually going to do 11 chain plus 1. I'm double checking my 11 because I know I did alter it once. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, it is. So I'm going to do 11 chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not tight either. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 plus 1. Now that plus 1 is only for our turn, so it's there. So you're actually only working in the 11 that are remaining there. Now into our first one, so remember it's the sort of second from the hook really, isn't it, because that last one was just for turning. We're going to do a double crochet, and then we're going to do another double crochet, and then we're going to do a half treble. If you're not sure, it's yarn round, so we're working into each chain, into the next chain, pull it through. We have 3 on the hook and pull it through all 3. Okay, we're going to do another half treble in the next chain. So we're working down that chain, and at the moment we're increasing the size of the stitches. We are now going to do a treble, so yarn round into the next chain, and this time remember it's 2 and 2. We're going to do another treble into the next chain. We're going to do a 2 and a 2. So you can see the size of the stitches are increasing to give us a bit of shape. Now I need to go back down the size of the stitches, so the next 2 are going to be half trebles again. So yarn round into our next chain, grab it, pull it through all 3, and another one like that into the next chain, half treble, and pull it through all 3. Now we have some stitches left, and they're just going to have 1 double crochet into each one. So we have 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so there was 3 there. Just going to tighten that up because that's just our little knot, but don't do it too tight. Now I'm going to do 1 chain because I want to turn and go back down the other side. I mean, you could leave it like that, but I wanted to sort of make it a little bit wider, so I'm going back down the other side, and we've got to reverse that combination. So remember, we finished with 3 double crochets, so we've got to start with 3 double crochets this time. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Remember, the next stitch was a half treble. Sometimes a little bit hard to see these chains, but it's the opposite side of the previous one, so hopefully you will pick that up. So that's 1 and 2. Next 2 stitches were trebles, so I've got to line it up with the other trebles. Oh, I nearly did a half treble then. That's 1. That's 2. Then we need some half trebles again. 2 of them. 1 and 2. Remember, we started, that stitch isn't very good there. Normally I would take that out and tighten it up a bit. We will finish with 2 double crochets, and that's it. That is our leaf. Yes, that definitely needs coming out because that's a loose stitch there, and I don't like to see loose stitches. But again, for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to take it apart for you guys, but I would do that for myself. So we have a little leaf shape with a little lump I don't like. I'm going to hide that lump. I'm going to hold it like that. We've got a little leaf shape, and the little leaves are obviously in between, but they're optional. That is just something you can add to it. So let's have a look how I actually put it together. We're going to start with petal number 1. So we'll move that one to one side. Now the reason, as I say, I know which is which, because one has 2 strands and the other one only has the 1. Now, because I wasn't sure myself when I first made it, in fact, I've not tied that off, have I? Let's have a look. Let me double check what I've done there. I think I've done it the wrong way around. Or I've just not fastened them off. These are my smaller ones. Those are my larger ones. So large together, small together. That's how we're going to do it. So basically, I wasn't sure how it was going to fit, so I decided to use the pins to position it first. So I positioned it, the tail at the bottom, because that's where I'm going to start to sew it on, and curve it around the body, and I just used the pin to hold it in place. This is why this poor first chocolate gets a little bit of a battering, because you want an overlap. Like I say, I'll worry about those in MA Minter 2. And it's working out where your overlap is going to sit. That's why I say I use the pins. I ought to find something like a polystyrene ball, shouldn't I, that is approximately the same size as a chocolate, and then I wouldn't have to keep stabbing these poor chocolates. So I'm just overlapping again. So can you see how the overlap is going? So I've got 3 there. It's number 4. So I'm just pinning it into place. And then that leaves me a nice gap, because can you see, you don't need a big gap here. Don't think you're filling in big gaps because you are overlapping, but you need your overlaps, that one is to push out, to be approximately the same. Okay, otherwise you can have a slightly lopsided flower, although flowers, you know, it doesn't really matter, does it? So that is me just pinning it into place, just like a little cabbage at the moment, so you can see where it's going. So I'm going to sew on just 2 of these. So I'm going to take my pins back out, and then I'm going to show you how I overlap for the second one. Which one shall I take out? I'll take that one out. So that leaves me 2 on here. So I'll take the first one out because I've worked out now, I can see how much of an overlap, how far it comes in. If you look, we've got 1, 2, 3. It comes in approximately 3rd round in, I would say. But again, play about with it. You get that where you feel it is comfortable. So we'll need to thread. I will leave that one pinned on for now because it's the first one. It holds it into place and gets you going. If I can thread this needle. No, the needle doesn't want to thread. Come on, in you go. The downside of using, I like to use quite a sharp needle to sew in, but the downside is the hole's always smaller for the yarn, so you sometimes have a bit of a battle. So for sewing this on, to be honest, it doesn't need a lot. For the first one, now can you see I'm just picking up the 2 stitches there and the 2 stitches there. 2 stitches. I keep it into camera center, and now I'm going on to the actual body of it, picking up the 2, picking up the 2. You need it relatively sort of solid on, so you don't want to sew it just on the base bit, but enough that it's not going to come off. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. So at that point I'm going to tie a little knot. I'm going to take my pin out, and the way to get the other side done is, again, I'm just going to thread it through. I've got a feeling that's why I actually left 2 strands on the second one as well. So I took it back to the bottom. So that side's sewn on. So this side needs a bit of a sew on. Make sure it's going to sit flat. Don't want it bunching up or anything like that. If I can get that one up, there we go. I think we need maybe 1 more stitch to make sure it's going to stay in place. I mean, when you put the other petals on anyway, it holds everything together. Yep, and then we can just thread it through and get rid of that bit. Got lots of ends with this. So that is our first petal sewn on. Yeah, so you can see basically I've gone up to there and then back up to there. So it's about halfway on each side. So we need, I've got a rough idea because I pinned it before where this is going to go. Now I've got to decide whether to get rid or not for those edges. I ought to, but like I say, for demonstration I'm not going to. So I'm going to decide my bottom. Well, not my bottom, the bottom of the flower, and it was about there. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. So this end here is going to be doing my sewing up. I'm going to ignore that other one, although you could use that as well. You'll, as I said before, you've got your own way of sewing up, so you can go for it. It's just showing the positions on how far up and things like that. Some people like to use a fresh piece of yarn for sewing up rather than using the tails. I just think it's best to sort of use the bits up that are there. Ta-da! Right, so make sure I'm happy with the positioning of the side bit, and making sure this is at the bottom, and I'm just going to pick up and go through both sides. Ta-da! And again. And again, I'm going to start slightly going up the top, but of course we're not going to be stitching onto the base now. We're actually going to be stitching onto the first petal. And that is how our petals will stay together, because they're stitching over each other. Okay, so I'll have a look, decide, do I want it to go a little bit further? Maybe. I think it depends on how open you want your actual flower. And I'm going to say, for that side, that is it. So I'm going to make a little knot. and you either now run this through to the bottom to work up the top, or to be honest, I've got a feeling this is why I might have changed what I was doing first time around. You could actually use that. Should we use that just to show us a different example? It's, I say, entirely up to you what you do with that. First of all though, we need to sew that end in. Get it out of the way, make sure it's sewn in thoroughly. You don't want your gift coming apart. It depends. You either leave it on the needle and thread it through so you're not messing about threading another needle, or we could use that. But the problem being, as I did tell you to sew, get rid of it, didn't I, on the first petal? So it's, as I say, it doesn't really matter. So first side is stitching to the petal, the second side is stitching to the base again. So yeah, this might work out easier in one respect, but you're just messing about undoing the actual needle, that's all. Making sure you go along this bit, you need to pick up the base of the base, if that makes sense, and also the base of the petal. I'm doing it again, I'm moving it towards me, I do apologise. Right, fasten off time. Thread it through and fasten off. Ta-da! So push it back on our poor chocolate, which is getting very battered. So you can see I've overlapped. Now the next one, again, I'm not going to sew it with you, but we would position again approximately 3 rounds in, I would say it is. Stitch up to the one side over the petal and stitch up to the other side onto the base. When you get towards the end though, you will be sort of going over both sort of base and petal, so you're just layering them. You can see how I've layered those all the way around. So I'm just going to show you for the second type of petal, which was the one where we expanded. Yes, so you can see sometimes give it a little stretch, it makes it curl that little bit more. So this time they're going to go over between the two petals. Okay, so you can see how you would get that curvy effect. Again, if you want to pin them first, it's always best to check, do so, make sure you know where you want to put them, and maybe take a photograph of it while it's pinned and then sort of go back to doing it. Or if you're happy sort of just going sort of freestyle a little bit, which now because I've done one I am, you can do that as well. So the very bottom of this curvy petal again is going to be attached along the bottom, and it needs to go up so far on our other petal, because we're not stitching to the base at all now, we're just stitching to the other petals. It's because it's a little bit loose here, because I'm not going all the way around, it's sort of pulling, so it's not holding as well as I'd like. I would recommend you put all 5 base ones on first and then go back to doing the second round. Right, I'm going to fasten it off and I will just sew it in a little bit. Ta-da! And fasten off. Because obviously when they're all stitched down, they're not going anywhere. And then obviously we've got this other side which we can stitch from here. Oh, if I could pick the needles up. I'm just looking where my little magnet is, then I find it easy to pick them up with a magnet. So because that's already on the side, because we threaded it through, didn't we, to the side, so it's already in position, we can just go down. Right down to the bottom and fasten it off. I was going to split them, there we go. Fasten it off and thread it through. So rough idea now, you can see those will sit close and those will sit splayed. And by the time we've gone all the way around, this is what you will get with it. Now, because it's not got the chocolate in, it sort of squishes in a bit. When it's got the chocolate in, it pushes out. So apart from that, the only other thing that you would need to sew on is the leaf. Now, here is our little leaf. You do need to get rid of one end because it's going to get in the way. So sew one end in, and then I just chose between petals, which I'll show you again on this one in a minute, and I just stitched it on at the bottom, a little bit at one side, a little down the other side, sort of hold it on sort of approximately like that, and you get your leaf shape. So if we look at this one, I'm going to pinch the chocolate back out of there because it's not holding well without the chocolate. It doesn't show you properly. So I'll push my chocolate in so you can see layer 1 petals just overlaid just slightly, layer 2 petals over the bit where these two join, so they're alternating. And then our leaves, as you can see, stitched up just slightly on each side. Now, can you see how thick it has made this base? It's made it really solid because every time I put one on, I was stitching through the very bottom. You see it's already starting to thicken up. I was stitching through this very bottom of these 2 stitches as well. So it sort of makes it nice and thick and chunky, and that's why that holds so well with that. So leaves optional. You can put on as many or as little as you want. I just thought that would sort of look quite nice for a rose design. And the little butterfly, I just sort of stitched on just to give it a little bit of detail. Perhaps we've got a tiny ladybird or a little bee would look cute. I was hoping I got a little bee, but I couldn't find one. So that is why I went for the ladybird. But basically, that is our Ferrero Rocher rose cover. You have 10 petals in total, and we have 10 leaves. So we've got 5 of each of these petals, 5 of the leaves, and 1 of the bases, and of course our little chocolate or little gift in there. And as I mentioned before, the beauty is, take it out and it still sits there looking nice. I knocked the camera a bit there. I hope I didn't go too dizzy. So that is it for our Ferrero Rocher rose cover, which was theoretically for Mother's Day, but it could still be depending on where you are in the world or how fast you crochet. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it came out quite well. I really did like this one, and I will see you all very soon with another video, whether it be dollies or whether it be crochet. I will see you soon. Don't forget, if you enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe and share, and I will see you all very soon. Bye bye for now.